20 Kings insider and the creator of the Kings Beat, our man James Hammer looked like he had a nice old night in Oakland last night. We have our opinions on what happened at the Coliseum last night. You were there. What was it like for you?
Yeah, so like this is one of those like opportunities to experience something, So like I'm somebody who covered the Kings relocation saga. I was at city council meetings all the time, just lots of love for Casey Pratt and Brody Brazil and all of the guys in the Bay Area who are tracking this thing on like an hour to hour basis. And then I was also part of the Here We Stay group in Sacramento. And like some of the things I saw last night were straight out of like the Here We Stay playbook. Uh, you know, uh, there was a point where Here We Stay was able to raise enough money to buy like 4,000 tickets to a Kings game, which is a lot of money, and a lot more than raising money to buy $5 t-shirts. It was a lot of money. And then of course some aloofs released a bunch of tickets at the last second. So I was at games where there were cheers, and there was like they handed out a pamphlet, and like you're supposed to this inning say start these chants and all that stuff. Like I thought, so being there as a fan this time and not with a media hat on, I really just kind of took it in. My son and I have been to a lot of A's games in the past, both my boys, but primarily at this point my oldest is still a baseball fan with me, and it was emotional. It was that the fifth inning, when it just all the entire stadium fell silent, and it was just like you couldn't hear anything. Like all you could hear was the ball and the glove, and the swing of the bat, and then to have it, sell the team chant start afterwards. I thought it was incredible. I actually thought, the A's, for as much as they've botched everything else, they probably did a good job. They staffed up. They made sure there was enough ticket takers. They made sure there was enough people to make food, because it's a big difference between making food for 2,500 people and making food for 30,000 people. Like whether the parking situation was good or not, they had a K-pop concert at the building next door. So it was a nightmare. Bart was a nightmare. But I just thought overall the ambiance was right. The signs were spectacular, and just a lot of good vibes coming out of there. Even though it's really it's more of a sad day,
Yeah.
because that team is almost for sure going to relocate, and it's going to be a tough day.
Did you ever have any games or moments during the Here We Stay saga that felt like the Oakland game yesterday, where it was like this is over. They're kind of just doing this to because it's all they can do, but it's over. I never, and you can tell me, but I was actually away at the time too, but it never felt like it was that over for the Kings the way it was yesterday for the A's, or the way it is right now.
Yeah, the final game of 2010, 2011, that felt over. That's the incredible Grant and Jerry sign off.
Mm.
We used that as like the opening to Small Market Big Heart when we made the film. That night felt like it was over. Most people in the building thought it was over. I did not, because I had been tracking the money the whole time, and the money never worked out. And Henry Samueli was not someone the league wanted to have ownership. They did not want another team in LA. The Honda Center was not ready for a team, and all that stuff. And then I'll also say, like, the day that Dana Falk tweeted out, like, I hear that it's a done deal. Maloofs are selling the team to a group in Seattle, whatever it was. That was a dark day. I actually thought the second time around, that was pretty much the end of the Sacramento Kings.
Mm.
And I always had people, because at that point, like, we're working like 80 to 100 hours a week on that story. Like, between me and John Santiago and, like all of my friends out there that were covering the team as well. I mean, we're at city council meetings one night, a Kings game another night, another city council meeting. Like, you're just like so immersed in it. and you never really had a chance to take a breath. And someone asked me a couple of people asked me, well, what are you going to do if they leave? And it's like, well, I'm not going to cover basketball anymore. I'm not going to cover sports anymore. Probably I'll just have to go do something different with my life. But that saga was dark and it was horrible. And there's some really, some sharp parallels here. The one difference is that the NBA was led by a great man and David Stern, and Major League Baseball is not.
Nope.
They're led by a coward, just like
jackass. They're
the
led by a
A's.
jackass.
The A's ownership is cowardice, and we're seeing more of it today. There's nothing good about what's happening, because you have to understand, like, when you have a professional franchise, you're the owner. You're nothing more than a steward. That franchise is going to last longer than you. And to pick something up and be spiteful and move it just to do it, and like even the vote, they're requiring that they use the Tropicana property, which is like a little back end 9-acre parcel that's right next to a freeway. It's just a horrible spot for a ballpark. It has no ambiance. Any ambiance in Vegas is fake anyways. And so it just really is a bad deal. All it is a money grab. And why should you, as an owner, be able to go and make money selling a product somewhere else when you very well could just, if he puts it up for sale in Oakland, he'll have owners coming to him nonstop. He'll have opportunities to sell the team. He could have a bidding war. Joe Lacob has said multiple times that he would buy the team, but that's not going to happen because bad people run the league I mean, again, what's your motivation here? There should be no motivation to move the Oakland A's. When is the last time a Major League Baseball franchise relocated? It feels like it's been a long time, and it's just bad for the game because you're going to lose hundreds of thousands of fans, and you're not going to gain hundreds of thousands of fans in Las Vegas, and you're not going to be able to sell out that place after year 2, year 3. Look, Las Vegas has so many other things to do other than go to a baseball game. Like, no one is going to Las Vegas to go see a 3-game series. They might go there to see Cirque du Soleil. They're not going to see a 3-game series. So, yeah, I mean, just being there in the crowd, I thought, again, to share it with my son even said, like, oh, man, this was a really crazy experience. I'm glad we came down. And for me, it was like that was my goodbye. I'm not going to go. If they are relocating, I'm not going again. I won't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, was that it? You're not, because Mark Spears, tweeted, or he put his Instagram pics up, and he said, I came to say goodbye. It's clear Mark's not going back. I was wondering if you were.
Well, yeah, and here's the funny thing. 28,000 fans, and I actually think that there was a lot more than that by the end of the game. There was all kinds of parking issues. There's all kinds of traffic issues. I'm walking down the corridor. It's jam-packed with people. Run into Mark Spears, which is just random. How do you run into Mark Spears? Another time I ran into one of my former editors at NBC. I was getting off the train, the BART train late last night, ran into Kyle. Like, of all like, it was just sort of like everyone was there. And, for me, again, it felt like a funeral. And, it didn't really feel like that. Like, there's still so much fight in the A's fans. And if I were down there, maybe I would have participated more in what's happening and all that stuff. But like, that's why even like my tweets, like, I don't usually tweet out a hashtag F an ownership group. That's not who I usually am. And for me, that's what it was last night. It was like, this feels like something that it's a grave injustice, and something that I hope the other owners look at seriously. Because the play in the NBA was always this big question. Well, what if we want to move down the road? Mm-hmm. And the NBA is more known for, like, vagabond, roving franchises than the Major League Baseball. There's a lot more relocation. Again, the last time, is there another one outside of the Expos becoming the Nationals and moving to Washington in the last like 25 years? I can't remember.
25 years, no.
Yeah, so like, that's not what happens in baseball, because baseball is all about stats. It's all about, like, it's legacy. It's a legacy game, so much more than the NBA, so much more than the NFL. And that to me is one of the things. Like, even like sitting here in my bar, I'm surrounded by baseball memorabilia, baseball pictures. But a lot of my pictures are from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Like, that's what baseball is about. It's about lineage. It's about, knowing who Jackie Robinson was, or, again, I was watching the A's play the Pirates the other day, knowing the Roberto Clemente story before they start talking about it, or right over my shoulder is Thurman Munson, understanding the Thurman Munson story and all of these things that happened throughout the course of time. And to lose that is, like, for a community, is just stunning. And for Oakland, they've always just missed the boat. Like, this guy wants a $12 billion complex in Oakland, which is nearly impossible in California. And they've come up with a lot of the money. And then in Vegas, it's 1.5 billion. Like, why can't you just do that somewhere?
He doesn't want to be here. Like, that's what this all boils down to. And that's where it goes to a point you made earlier, James. If there was strong leadership in place, the leadership would say, no, hold up, wait a minute. You have the ability to get a venue here, and you won't, because you're I can't say this enough. It's the plot to Major League.
It is.
Without the happy ending. They're acting out the plot to Major League without the happy ending. And that's where Rob Manfred comes into play. Is Rob Manfred has just let all of this happen. And of course, when owners aren't blinking twice at this. The owners are, Kenny said this earlier, owners are going to vote unanimously to move this team to Las Vegas. And it's disgraceful.
But they shouldn't, because that's not what they understand.
No, they absolutely shouldn't, but I absolutely believe they will.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch Ted Lasso. I'm assuming that you're not caught up on Ted Lasso, but there's a moment.
I'm familiar with it, but not caught up with it.
Yeah, there's a moment in the last season where a guy comes in and wants to build a super league, and he pulls in all of these rich owners. And they have this moment where the owner of Ted Lasso's team stands up and says, look, like, what are we doing? Are we just, why, first of all of you are rich. So why are you trying to make more money? If that's what this is about, then you shouldn't be doing it. This is about the fans. It's about the people that we're in partnership with. And the violation of that partnership in Oakland is one of the most grotesque things of all time, to just give away your players all the time. And to do it in a spiteful way. Even this offseason, they didn't even, like, some of these deals, they didn't even get it, like, talent. They just traded guys away to trade them away. And so it really just, like, sticks out as something that's so horrible and shameful that the league is allowed to happen. I mean, up until this 7-game winning streak, the A's were like 12-52 or something. I mean, below. I mean, you keep seeing the stat. Like, this is the first time a team with a sub 200 win percentage has won 5 games in a row, or 6 games in a row, or 7 games in a row. It's like, well, that's because there's never a team with a sub 200 win percentage, because that's not baseball. That's trash. And the whole thing is just dirty and filthy. And again, just do the right thing. If you don't want to be here, just cash out. Like, you're not a good owner. You're not. Like, people talk about a pump and dump here. Well, that's fine, but how much more is he going to make? Like, he's not going to make that much money, because even in Vegas, we're talking about a $1.1 billion investment that he's going to have to do out of his own pocket to make that stadium, to build that stadium. What's he going to get for the A's? Like $3 billion? Like, he's not going to get that much. And it's just like, if you can't do it, if you don't want to be a steward, if you don't want to be a man and own up to what it is to own a professional franchise, then let someone else do it, because you're a coward. You're not a legitimate sports fan. You're not a legitimate baseball owner. And to me, it's one of the saddest things, because it always comes down to that. And in the end, like, the Maloofs, they were broke. Like, they're broke. Their mom wasn't going to give them access to their Wells Fargo money. They were broke. They had to get out. And sometimes you can understand that. And part of the reason why Fisher is having problems is his stock is tanked. And I mean, I'm hoping that people start that campaign. How about you boycott Gap and turn Gap into the pariah that it should be, and hurt his dollar even more, because that's really, the way that you can hurt this guy. But there was a point where, again, the Maloofs became vindictive, and they were forcing the team to go somewhere else because they just wanted to make as much money as possible on the way out and to screw over the city of Sacramento the best that they could, and for no reason. Like the Maloofs were embraced here. They were like gods for 10 years, and then they weren't. And it was on them. It wasn't on the fans. It was on them. They put a bad product on the court. They got cheap, and things went sideways, and they ran out of money. It was time for them to go. And it's time for Fisher to go. If you have a billionaire boys club, why would you want John Fisher in the room still? And if you're Las Vegas, why would you want that guy owning a team in your city? I mean, because he is just absolutely the worst. What he's done to that, I mean, the fact that he can't even fix the plumbing, that people still get locked in the visiting dugout's bathroom, just sad.
Infested with
feral cats.
Feral cat, but they had the possum that forced the Mets broadcasting
team had to leave. Yeah, the possums took over.
Well, they had the feral cats. They left the feral cats because they had a rat problem. It's just too bad they didn't pull the real rat out of there.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
If Fisher saw the long game, you could sell the Oakland A's, buy back into NHL, and be a Stanley Cup champion in like 6 years.
Easy
there
work.
You go.
Easy work. Yeah. On a different note, I talked about the possibility of, the Sacramento hosting the A's for a couple of years till Vegas is ready. I don't really think I'm on the fence, but I'm leaning towards there's no need to do that. But do you see Sacramento? There was an outside chance of them swooping in and getting the A's here. It looks to be long gone at this point. Do you think that there's a chance they get any other professional sport here in Sacramento?
Yeah, I think that there's a chance to get another professional sport or two here in Sacramento. It's the 20th largest media market in the U.S. And like when you started that about the A's potentially staying here for the 2 years because their lease is up in Oakland, and Oakland doesn't want them. I would just say this, that if Avec allowed him to John Fisher to move his team to Rivercat Stadium for 2 years while they build a stadium down there, that would be the most hypocritical junk I've ever heard. And the only way that works is if Major League Baseball has a signed written agreement with you for expansion. If you can prove X, Y, and Z, you can have expansion. That's the only reason you would ever host the A's. If not, it's shameful. It's shameful. It would be shameful for Vivek Ranadive to help an owner, even if it is his friend, who has completely done what he fought here in Sacramento to stop from happening. So, and as far as Major League Sports, yeah, I think you can get NHL here. I think you still should have been able to get MLS here, but I think it shows you everything that, you couldn't come up with a billionaire owner here for MLS to get the team done, or it would have already been done. It would have been done 3 years ago, but now we can't, get anything like guaranteed in Sacramento.
Hey, Jesse, I don't know how to make a cute transition here, so let's just break. Let's break and come back and talk basketball, because I don't want to I feel like it cheapens the conversation if we talk about Bradley Beal and some of the basketball stuff. So
I saw a crazy quote. We can talk about that basketball quote.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's reset. Ham's gonna go pour a drink at the bar, and then we'll come back and we'll talk basketball and do that in KC. Brought to you by Sky Ridge Casino. Resumes here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. Oh, I can't wait to see what this is. Twitter telling me, get verified. Kiss my ass. I was verified. I'm not giving you $9 or $14.
Yeah, the only reason I do Twitter Blue is because I need to post videos that are longer than 2 minutes.
Well, you had it before.
Well, I was verified
You had
forever.
yeah, but you had Twitter Blue originally because you were posting those.
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
videos for a while.
So all of this is misleading, right?
Wizards to work with Bradley. Yes, that's 100% misleading. That is absolutely not what was reported today. Of course, Tim fucking Bontemps on my screen.
I love
Dummy.
Tim.
I know you do. I'm telling him he's a dummy.
He's a good dude, though.
That's terrible. That's a terrible headline.
It's funny.
So-
I got off the train. I don't even know what station because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm horrible with Bart, and I'm like, "Hey, Kyle." we like hugged it out really quick. He's like, "I gotta get on the train." I'm like, "See you, bro." We went on. Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle knows his way around that joint.
Yeah. Yeah, that and walking down the thing, you know, there's Mark, like people just going
You
around.
can't really miss Mark. Yeah,
You can't miss him. It was cool though, because my son got to meet him. And you know, like Mark's on 2K, so my son's like, "Oh my gosh, he's on." Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If I'd ever played 2K, I would have known. But
Great game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of the signs last night were incredible.
yeah, it looks like they were into it.
Yeah, the
Looked like a lot of green shirts too.
John Fisher P sitting down shirt. Sign. That was spectacular. Plus, it was so many people because of the concert. So you had all these people in green, and then all of these people dressed like K-pop people. So like a lot of pigtails, a lot of short skirts. Yeah, it was a very interesting crowd rolling up to the Coliseum.
Hey, is the quote you saw the Karl Anthony Towns quote?
Oh no.
Oh, don't look it up, James. We'll read it to you.
I'm
I just looked at my phone. I wasn't searching it out. It's just right here on my phone. Oh man. This dude just invites heat. He's just like, hey, yeah. We'll read it to you, James.
There's just no self-awareness there.
It's quite a take. It's quite a take from Karl Anthony Towns. On the Pat Bev pod of all places. God almighty. When they say anyone can have a podcast, they were not lying.
I think Pat Bev was gassing him up too, talking about like he's one of the best big men ever or something like that.
I saw the quote from Pat Bev where he said Cat's the best big in the game.
Oh.
Oof.
Oh.
No, securing the beam. I haven't seen Draymond's response. Is it on Twitter?
The best big what? Like, yeesh.
That's big name Carl.
Guess,
That's Mike. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I know someone hit me up today. What was Sabonis' field goal percentage at the rim during the playoffs? He's missed so many shots. I've never seen anyone miss so many shots. Like, yeah, bro shot 51% from 2 points in the playoffs. And Bam Adebayo shot 48%.
Well, there we
Just
go.
saying.
There
Just
we
saying.
go. And I like.
Oh yeah, Draymond's all over this.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Pat Bev, when people come on your show, they change the game? ? I'm looking forward to it, man.
That's
Yeah,
I'm
Cat's
about to say,
Draymond, like Cat's way better
shut
than
the
you.
hell
Yeah.
You don't comment on this.
Yikes.
Unplug these microphones. Oh man.
I'd probably take Pat Bev in Sacramento as a backup point guard. Just saying.
No.
Just saying. Just saying.
No. Pat Bev is a clown show at this point in his career.
He had
No
time.
interest.
Like he had time where he was a solid dude out there, but I'm good.
Oh, Pat Bev?
Yeah. I'm good.
I'd rather have a really like a Torrey Craig, like a super long,
Rather
defensive.
have Delly back.
He's gone.
Buy Delly out of his Australia contract.
He gone. That's funny.
All right, we're coming back, Hammer.
All right.
I wasn't purposely looking for the quote that Kenny teased before the commercial break, just as we were killing time.
Whoa.
I looked down at my phone and, well, there it was, just pushed out there for everyone to see. You teased it. I'll let you pay it off.
Okay. How do we get into this? Quote unquote. When my time is up and I retire, there will be people who say that I changed the game. Karl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
He's probably right. Willie Cauley-Stein is out there somewhere saying that he's changed the game. Willie Cauley-Stein will.
Hey man, look, I don't
That's
ever
a hell of a take.
I don't ever want to tell nobody what you're not. You know, hey, self-confidence. I'm all for it. Hey, if that's what you believe, seriously, more power to you. I'm just like, I won't be one of those people. He said there will be people that say I changed the game. I won't be one of those people.
I mean, he plays for one of the more recent expansion teams, and he still can't say that he's one of their top 5 players yet.
Wow.
I mean,
that's a brutal way of looking at it.
I mean, come on now. Like, I don't understand what he's
passed him up. Well, he's not a rookie no more, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like Ant probably passed him up.
Oh, he will.
Time, but like he's better now. Like you got Anthony Edwards ahead of Karl Anthony Towns on the Timberwolves all-time list already.
He's taken them to the playoffs twice.
He's probably top 5, but he's certainly nowhere near. Like
Kevin Love is above him.
Kevin Garnett.
Like,
KG,
well, no, of course, KG's one,
KG,
right?
Yeah.
Kevin Love, I'd put it 2.
Yeah.
Kevin Love 2.
Well, we're gonna have to go back.
Kevin Love, dude. That was pre-model Kevin Love. That was before he was a Banana Republic model.
I'd say I don't want to be disrespectful to Cat, so I'll say Ant and then Cat.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Cat. He's top 5 for sure, but I think he's 4.
I wonder if Pat Bev followed up with, how, bro?
Well, apparently Pat Bev was like, "Yep,
Wow.
Yeah, like what is this? What does he think? Like, how is he going to change the game? Because he certainly isn't the one who's.
My thought is that without hearing the context of the interview, he probably thinks he says he's the best shooting big man in the game, maybe of all time. He probably feels like that's where he changed the game as a center that shoots threes at a high clip.
Yeah, Jesse kind of brings up a good point. I'm gonna paraphrase it a little bit. Like Karl Anthony Towns' legacy right now is that Jimmy Butler punked him. And here's the cold part about Jimmy Butler punking Karl Anthony Towns. I have zero issue with Karl Anthony Towns, by the way. Jimmy was right. Like Jimmy was right. Like when he called the team soft, everybody knew who he was talking about, and he wasn't wrong. Part of the Anthony Edwards thing is, to use the old sports line, Anthony Edwards is a dog. He's the dog that the Minnesota Timberwolves desperately needed.
Yeah.
And that's why they are where they are. That's why if you're entertaining trading anybody on that team, you're entertaining trading Karl Anthony Towns.
Well, you're entertaining trading Rudy Gobert. That I like Cat and
good luck
and
with
Ant-Man.
that, pal.
Yeah, that's the conundrum they're in. I like Cat and Ant-Man mainly because of what you just said. Ant-Man is the dog that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't need to be for that team. So he could just sit back, he can shoot his little threes, and he's very skilled. He can play a skilled basketball game and not have to worry about the other stuff that Ant-Man is taking care of. So I actually like that pairing, but Rudy Gobert's in the way. That's the one real issue.
That's the NBA. That should be the new NBA slogan. NBA basketball. Rudy Gobert's in the way. That's how
Yeah.
Utah felt. That's how Minnesota feels. NBA basketball. It's Rudy Gobert in the way.
In our look back on the season, Rudy Gobert punched his teammate.
That's right. Did we all act like Draymond Green was the only one? He was not. Draymond did it behind closed doors. Cat did it in a playoff game. Or I'm sorry, Rudy Gobert.
Gobert. Yeah,
Rudy Gobert did it right before a playoff game.
Trying to get seeding, trying to stay out of the play-in, all this other stuff, trying to stay in the play-in. I think I don't even think they were in for top 6. They were trying to make sure they got in there.
Dummy.
Yeah, I mean, like a couple of years ago, there was so much talk there in Minnesota that he just wouldn't play, and they just kept like checking out his knee and saying, "Hey, man, we've done like every single test possible."
Talking about Cat.
We talking about Cat. Like we got nothing. There ain't nothing that we can see. Well, like it still hurt. Like okay. Like I don't like to question players, but I can tell you that coming from the franchise, there were a ton of people going, "What in the world are we going to do?"
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Zion thing. Like I told you guys, like Zion. Like if I'm the Pelicans, like I'm bailing on that experiment. Like if you think you can get out of this and somehow land a top 3, a top 5, a top 7 pick, that's a lot of money.
I've read way too much about Zion Williamson in the last week, and I can tell you there is no situation like the Zion Williamson situation. Absolutely none.
No.
James, we're talking about Karl Anthony Towns. You bring up Zion Williamson in the trade conversation is perfectly fair. We just looked up at the television and saw this completely misleading headline about how the Wizards and Bradley Beal's agent are going to work together in trade scenarios, which in a bubble is accurate. The important part about that is Washington hasn't made an overture about whether they're trading Bradley Beal or not. You've got the Dame Lillard stuff out there. Of course, you got free agents like James Harden and Kyrie Irving. James, could there be a little bit more movement in this offseason than we originally expected?
I always expected this to be a crazy offseason. I think it's going to be wild. I think I told you, I think this is potentially the offseason where all of these other pieces, I mean, we're even hearing that there was rumors that the Hawks might be interested in moving DeJounte Murray. And again, talk about making a trade and never being able to get your like draft picks back. Gobert is like you went in and you bought a Lamborghini and you blew the engine and then, let it run through the back of your garage. So your $200,000 Lamborghini is now worth like $50K. That's what you're.
Is that a Ferris Bueller reference? Did you just draw a Ferris?
But that was a Corvette. That wasn't. Okay. That was a Stingray. Yeah. But yes, I mean, and then again, that was Cameron kicking the car off.
Well, they did drive it out. It did go out of the back of the garage.
It did. No, it's very true. It's very true, and it flew off into the ravine below. Yeah, it did.
That's a lot. There's a lot going on about.
I mean, he just kept kicking the front end of the car while it was up on a jack. While they're trying to roll back the odometer.
Miles back.
Yeah. Roll back the odometer. Yeah.
That was something similar that happened on a 2-part episode of Saved by the Bell, but this is a lot more intricate than that.
Okay, so what was it, a Ferrari or was it a Corvette?
I think it was a Ferrari.
It might have been.
The Corvette has the sleek front, right? This had like the more. I think it was a Ferrari.
The chats are saying Ferrari.
I mean, I can look. Yeah, we don't want to be in it. I mean, you have a safe Ferris shirt, for God's sake. We can't be.
I do actually. I have 2 of them.
Inaccurate when we.
And today I'm wearing Pinky in the Brain.
Well, there you go.
Brain.
Casual James Ham. Is, movie shirts and cartoons.
That's right.
I don't have a follow-up question. I'm trying to figure out if it was a damn Ferrari or not. I don't even remember what my original question was.
Oh, no.
Well, James said it's going to be a crazy offseason. I didn't think it's going to be a crazy offseason. That would involve.
It is a Ferrari.
Okay.
Just for the record, it's a Ferrari.
That would involve trades. I don't know if the trades are happening, James, but you think they might happen, huh?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be because we have no idea where Kyrie's going to end up. We have some of these other bad situations in the league. If you're not trading them, if you're not making moves at this point, when you're stuck as like an 8 seed or a 9 seed or, even like a 6 seed, but you've been stuck there forever, like, what are you doing? Like, that's just not, it's impossible to improve when you're in that situation. Your draft picks aren't good enough to help you. Like, maybe you can sign a free agent, but a lot of these teams just have so much dead weight, and there's nothing they can do to go out there and be a legitimate player in free agency. The only one that gets to steal from Danny Ainge is the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sure he'll steal from him. They'll steal from him again this summer, even though they don't have access to any first round picks. They'll still find a way to steal from the Utah Jazz or wherever Danny Ainge goes. So yeah, like I think that there's got to be movement. Like there's a bunch of teams that are stuck in the middle. You know, it's like you're seeing it right now with Sacramento Kings. They're the 24th pick in the draft. Like, you're not looking at a game changer at number 24. Like I posted small forward options this morning, and like there's so many interesting players, but none of them help you in year one. You know, maybe out of all the forward options of guys that can help you, the one guy that can probably step on the court and play in year one that could somehow fall to 24 is Chris Murray. And that's because the Murray guys are, you know, they come in NBA ready. They have a very distinct game that is very NBA ready. Outside of that, man, I love me some Leonard Miller, but 2 years from now, you know, so when you're at number 24, you're at number 18, it's really hard to improve right away with using that as your sort of vehicle to get better. It's why teams like the Denver Nuggets don't care about their first round picks, because they're at the back end of the first round and they're just like, let's go ahead and trade. Let's go see what we can get with a first round pick.
What player that you wrote about do you like the most? Or is there one that you like the most?
Yeah, you know, I did all of the guys I did today were all small forward options. I think there's another group that I'll be doing for tomorrow that are going to be more like combo or 4-3s, and I kind of like that group better. There are certain guys that I don't like Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine is interesting. You know, guys like Jet Howard to me has, like, the Kings need a better defensive player. Bryce Sensabaugh, I'm not that intrigued by, and he might go before the Kings draft. Coulibaly is super intriguing, but I don't think he's flying up draft boards now. There's a couple of guys that, you know, like the G League guys, the Ignite guys, CD Sissoko, I'm really intrigued by. Kind of moves a little bit like Tyreek Evans or like Emmanuel Mudiay, but at the small forward, and a good kid from everything I hear from, you know, inside the walls at the Ignite. Just really, really good, you know, down to earth kid, just like Scoot Henderson, just salt of the earth. So these are all like that. I really like what's happening with the G League, with the Ignite. And that's something that I think that over the course of the last 5 years or 4 years, whatever it's been, the test pilot product here, they're producing a lot of NBA players, number one. But they're also like really working to teach kids how to be pros and how to come out and like be impactful and understand your role and all that stuff. I think they're doing a great job there.
That's got to be a really big positive for an NBA team, doesn't it? Like going with I understand you go for talent and all of that stuff, but having a G League player who's been around NBA people, like, I mean, Pete Youngman, like, we know Pete was a part of that Ignite squad, you know, and like you're around NBA trainers, you're around NBA coaches, you're around like an NBA setup. Like, that's got to go a really long way when it comes to this draft process.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, again, like Leonard Miller. So like where he goes into the combine, measures it like 6'10" with like a 7'1" wingspan, whatever. I watched the tape on him and I'm like, okay, this is all really intriguing. His last 15 games, he's averaging like 20 and 12. And he's got some 30 and 11 games in there. And you're like, what in the world? How is this guy not a top 5 talent? How is he, especially like, you look at the measurables, you look at the game, you look at everything that he's at, like the totality of it. If somehow he falls to 24, the Kings would be crazy, because it's not for this year. Whatever you do at 24 is not for this year. It should be for the year, the next year, the year after that. You're hoping that you're creating a pipeline so you don't get into a situation where Harrison Barnes is a free agent and you don't have a replacement for him. That's kind of what you're hoping. So like guys like that, and even like Sissoko, like I'm watching Sissoko and he has all of these crazy passes, and you're looking at his raw numbers and it's not something obscene. He averages like 3.5 assists per game, but he was running pick and rolls with Eric Mika. And you saw that's what the beauty of the G League Ignite team is. It's that you have really solid veterans, like 4A players that know the game, that, you're that can help these young players develop, but not just like working with them on how to handle the ball, like actual functional, like this is how you roll with a big man at the NBA level. And so there's a lot to like from the tape on most of the G League guys coming out.
You got guys like Pooh Jeter, played in the G League this past year, and before that, I think Jared Jack was on that Ignite team.
Yes, he was.
Them. So, I love what they're doing with the G League for sure. And, I would take either one with the Kings. I would take a guy that they feel could come in and help them right away. And I would also be okay with the project. They're at 24, and with the 2 second-round guys, then this is kind of where I get into. I'm not saying his name specifically, but like an Amani Bates type guy. They can take a high upside guy at 24 and find a guy that could help them this year in the second round, like an older, more established collegiate guy that could help them this year and let the high ceiling guy develop at a slower rate. You think that's a possibility as well?
Well, I would invert it. I think that what they can do is they can take a player with like high potential at 24, but maybe that's a safer play, and then come back with that at 38 or come back at 54 if he's still available. So I get what you're saying, but there's no way he's going to be off the board at 24. And I don't think there's any way he's going in the first round. I'd even be surprised if he goes before the middle of the second round, and there's potential for him to fall to 54. And I know that like he's got a lot of talent, but you're looking at a guy with also some pretty heavy red flags. If you can get a player, let's just like compare him to Chris Murray. Chris Murray, like there's a good chance he could be a 10-year pro. Like he does things that you need on the court. And I'm not just like it's hard to get away from the comparison with Keegan, but they're different players. They're different players in the same way that Caleb and Cody Martin are different players, and that the Morris twins are different players. They're similar and their bodies are identical, but their game, there's little things that each of them do that are different. Like Chris isn't the extreme 3-point shooter that Keegan is. But he might be a more functional rebounder, shot blocker, and steal man than Keegan. Like when you look at his game. And so those are things where you're looking at a safer pick that is going to make your team and going to be part of maybe not the top end of your rotation. He might not even be like in your top 10, but next year he probably would be. And there's an opportunity for you to like somehow sneak him into the back end of your rotation, especially if you have an injury. If you have a major injury and you need somebody to fill in for a couple of weeks, and he probably could do that. Where again, I just don't think that you're going to find that with Amani. Amani, if you're going to bring him along, it's going to be slowly. It's going to be through the G League. He's going to play, 5 minutes here and there if he does make it up to the big team, and he's going to do a lot of practicing with the team. He's not going to be like a functional part of what's happening and a functional part of even the back end of the rotation.
Well, and when I said Amani, I was just using his name as an example. I'm just saying like the project of a 19-year-old that may not be ready to contribute. You can snag him at 24 because you may look at it and be like, Denver's got nothing to lose. They'll snag him at 30. Let me get him at 24. And then with what they got, like 37 or something like that, at 37, take your 4-year college guy that is a solid role player. You could take him there, and he can help you this year. And 24 can develop, with him being a 19-year-old. So Amani or anybody else, it wasn't specific to him. It was just that young upside project guy. You could take him at 24 and let him develop, and then take more of a quote unquote proven guy with one of the second-round picks.
Yeah, well, and again, I brought this up last week. Remember, there's going to be 3 two-way players, and I would expect that even like number 38, there's a good chance that number 38 is more of a two-way than he is a roster, one of the main 15-man roster players. So, but you're right. You can take a gamble. I'd say you take a gamble. You're going to go for the best talent available, and if the best talent available at number 24 is a 19-year-old that's raw, but you see something that you absolutely love, then that's fine. And you can come back, even like number 38, like Jaime Haskins, from UCLA.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about like a brawler dude that can come in and like he's super feisty and reminds me a little of like Eduardo Nahara, like those guys that come in and just instigate and frustrate you and are physical, whether he's going to be, even like a Dylan Brooks. That's what, that Haskins has the potential to be. But, that's something that is more of a safe pick, where 38, that makes a lot of sense, especially if you take a flyer at 24. I'd say it's very possible the Kings take a flyer at one of those 2 spots and a safe pick at one of those 2 spots.
Mm-hmm.
James, you've covered this league a long time. We're 8 days away from the draft, 16-ish days away from the start of free agency. Do you believe anything anyone tells you right now?
Yeah. I mean, we have a way of you talk to somebody and then you take that information, you're like, okay, that's interesting. And then you chase it. So like, if you can get that, like the story that you hear one spot, but you start hearing it from multiple spots, then you start to create a bigger idea of what's happening and an identity of like what might be going on. And you're starting to piece things together. I also think like what we see in the media that's being out there. So there's the things that
official 347. 347. John Fisher got him. John Fisher got him.
Fisher got him.
We had 2 separate guest frees today. A James Ham freeze with just under 8 minutes left in the show.
No.
If you had 347, I saw the speculation early. In the chatty house. Is James Ham going to freeze today? We got a Bryant West freeze.
I didn't think it was going to happen. Everything was so smooth.
He was in 4K. There was nothing wrong with it. And you know the rules. Whenever someone freezes, for those who are watching, we just leave the frozen picture on the live stream. What a day. You would think it was 30 degrees outside the way the internet is acting today. Boy, oh boy.
That was a classic freeze right there on his
That
face.
is a classic.
That's a good freeze.
That's
a good freeze. That's a good. And again, in normal fashion, the only one who doesn't find it funny is James Ham. Everyone else loves it except James.
Yeah. It's always around the same time.
Does this ever happen during the King's Beat? Like, have you ever frozen during the King's Beat?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you have? Oh,
yeah. Yeah. I disappear every once in a while. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, that happens.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was saying is there are things that I know and things that I hear and but there are things that I won't report because I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there. There's some people who are more than okay, like throwing rumors out there all the time that are like may or may not ever come to fruition. I'm a little bit more conservative on that. And so I hear it all the time. I hear all kinds of things all the time, and you're trying to piece things together and hope that you figure them out. But at the end of the day, there's a good chance that what you're hearing is never going to happen a lot of the time. But it's fun to talk about. It's fun to think about.
Sure. It's fun to talk about Bradley Beal being traded, even though that's not at all what the report was. It's fun. Why not?
Do a whole segment on it.
Why not?
Let's get on SportsCenter and just talk about it. Put the headline on there.
Well, in defense of SportsCenter, they don't have anything else to talk about today either.
Baseball.
No, it's true.
Giants,
Yeah, the A's aren't interesting enough for them to talk about.
The Giants did come back and win earlier today.
Hey,
Oh.
James, do you understand? Like, let's try to be. James is always objective, but let's try to be objective here. Do you understand anybody that says the Kings should sell high and trade Domantas Sabonis?
No, is somebody saying that?
Oh yeah, it's out there. It's out there. Yeah. Yeah. It's out there. James is having a tough time.
I'm about to freeze, and I'm still like looking at you. I need to make sure that I'm like.
James is having the same reaction we all saw when we saw that tweet for the first time.
It's crazy.
Oh, who put that one out there?
There's been multiple people that in NBA Twitter who feel that way.
What was his name? Nate Jones.
Nate Jones.
I don't know. He's he has a following on Twitter.
Our guy Bonte thinks Sabonis is just garbage.
Does not like Domantas Sabonis at all.
He's absolute garbage. Then other guys like Eddie Gonzalez, he kind of co-signed it or whatever. I mean, it's a thought out there it's actually a thought out there by a lot of people. Like, I don't want to make it like people are just crazy. Like, a lot of people that aren't Kings fans, like, yeah, they probably should look into that. Now, granted, they probably didn't watch the Kings until the playoffs, so
they got a 7-game sample size.
So, but
they did also like miss that Sabonis just led the team to their first playoff series in 16 years. Like, did they just forget that? Like, why would you reset and take a step backwards when the guy's, he just turned 27, right? Yeah. Excuse me? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You build around him. You don't, like, he's nearly irreplaceable. Like, in the league, there's only, like, if you're going to play this style, you're going to do this type of team, there's only like 3 guys in the league that can pass like him. I don't know.
Oh, that was close. But ironically, James, like, I'll even like sit up there and listen to a conversation of Sabonis, because I think Fox is the best player, right? It's subjective, but whatever. But I'll listen to a conversation that says, I don't think Sabonis can be your second best player and you be a championship team. Maybe you need somebody better. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'll listen to that. But the whole, you need to move on from him. What are these people talking about? Ironically, you brought up people like Bam, and I brought up Evan Mobley, and the numbers that they put up this postseason that were lower than what Sabonis did. Nobody's saying the Heat should trade Bam.
Yeah, and Sabonis was like, for the stats, like the field goal percentage and stuff. Like, Sabonis was solid. Like, he just ran into a bad matchup in the first round. Like, that's I guess people got to sell stuff. I guess that's at the end of the day what's going on. But that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the Kings are all in on a 3-time All-Star and All-NBA player. I mean, they do understand that, like, an All-NBA player means you're considered one of the top 15 players in the league. And he came in like 11th, like, out of all those players, and Fox was like 12th. Like, the Kings are right there. And he played with a torn ligament in his hand for like 70% of the season.
He played with it forever.
Yeah. Like, I don't understand. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And, like, again, who is, like, I'll ask this question. Who is the Denver Nuggets' second best player? I know your first instinct is to say Jamal Murray, but is it really?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's Jamal Murray. Who do you have in mind?
Well, I don't know, because Jamal Murray.
It's Jamal. If you need help, it's Jamal Murray.
Yeah, but I mean, Jamal's not an all-star. He's
there. He's been hurt for 2 years, but
not an all-star.
Healthy. It was this year in the bubble.
Yeah, but if you go through that game by game and figure out, like, how they won each of those games, like, do they win without an Aaron Gordon? Do they win without a Michael Porter Jr.? No. Like, there are games that each of those players step up.
That's why they're a championship team, but Jamal Murray is the second best player on that team.
Okay. I mean, he probably is, but I mean, again, he's not at such a high level that you're like, okay, like, he's irreplaceable, because he's not. And he's not certainly at the level of Sabonis or Fox.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I like he's on that level.
Jamal's good. Next year's a big year for him.
That's
like
true.
he
See
heated
how
up.
he follows this.
Yeah, he heated up a lot in the postseason, which was very similar to what he did in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
He had a good year, by the way. I'm not suggesting he didn't have a good year, but he got back to that bubble Jamal in the playoffs, and now it's like, okay, is this the Ja Morant thing where Ja exploded in the playoffs and just carried it over? In some would say he was firing on all cylinders. Heading into
come on, man. Come on,
he
man.
was heading into the next season. It's James Ham. Make sure you subscribe to the Kings Beat over at thekingsbeat.com. You want some